Joining us from Dallas, Texas, is Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa. Mr. Okpa, thank you so much for your time. Let's begin with the ruling itself. How significant is this decision, and does it effectively reopen the door for Nigerians affected by the visa restrictions?
Well, it doesn't. This is what we expected. Anytime any president has done something, he's got to find a federal judge, what they call, through venue shopping, who's just going to come in and issue an order, but it doesn't stop anything because the administration is going to appeal it, and the administration has the upper hand in deciding who comes into America. Most people don't know it. Even if you are getting a visa, you are at the port of entry, an immigration officer can just look at you and just say, nope, you're not entering, get back, and put you around the corner for you to be deported. So, people should always remember that, visa and immigration is a privilege, it's not a right. Until you actually make the entry and you've gone through the process of immigration clearance and the custom, and then you are inside the country. And then if you stay within the requirements of the visa, then you can change your status. But just thinking because a federal judge has just issued an order, all of a sudden the floodgate is going to open doesn't mean anything.
Now, looking at the details of this judgment, the judge said the Secretary of State, talking about Rubio, exceeded his statutory authority. How vulnerable is this ruling to an appeal by the Trump administration?
Well, Marco Rubio also obviously has, legal team at the State Department. So before they may issue any orders, those internal legal resources would have said yes or no. And so again, we don't put so much weight on what many federal judges have, do, because when you look at their appointments, some of them are appointed during a particular president. They could be Democrats or Republican, and then, they have taken, the high handedness of, I'm going to say this because again, they are, these judges are appointed for life, and there's no reprimand when they become errant, doing what they do. So that's what we deal with in America. No other country can oppose their president doing something, not in Nigeria, not in China, not in Russia, not in England, not in India, but in America, we have the opportunity to challenge our leadership, but it doesn't mean that's the end of it. But when it comes to immigration, the president has the ultimate right. He's going to appeal this, and he can come in and sign an executive order and restrict whomever he decides shouldn't come into America.
Now, for Nigerians who have had their immigrant visa processing, paused since January, what does this mean practically? Should they expect processing to resume immediately?
The processing is going on. It's just that you're not going to get entry. Remember, it's not you being given visa. It's just that you're not going to get entry. So it's the entry that really matters. If the president decide not, the president legal team decide not to appeal this, then the order can stay. But they're going to appeal it. And then if they don't win it at appeal, then they go to Supreme Court. And remember, in the appeal, it's going to be 3 panel of judges, not just one judge. In the federal court, at the lower court, is one judge making the ruling. When you go to the next level, it's going to be 3. And then if you now succeed at the 3, then you can go to the 9th, Supreme Court justices. And because of the nature of this stuff, it's going to be given an expedited request, and then we're going to see what happens. But those people that are affected is unfortunate. They're going to have to stay until the ultimate decision is made.
Now, the Trump administration justified the restrictions on concerns over public benefits and even national security. Does this ruling signal a broader judicial pushback against the administration's immigration policies?
No, it doesn't. Again, America has, what they call the assessment of countries. From the time they started to today, it's always looking at okay, who comes in and who doesn't come in. If you remember at the time, a lot of Irish people were not allowed to come to America until 1800s, and then they came. And then the Italians followed, and the Italians were restricted. Sometime in the 1940s or so, there was what they call the quota system. They look at number of people that come from a particular country or region of the world. They say, okay, here is the percentage, that are going to be let in. So the immigration thing has always been evolving. When I came, if you didn't have to show up for your green card, you married, you send your marriage certificate book. I got my green card in 6 months. No Nigerian has ever done it as fast as I did it. I'm not saying it for bragging. I'm just giving you a record. And then I get to my citizenship. I got my citizenship in 1995. So the process, but since then they've been changing the rules. Because people come in and start to behave in a certain way, and then America is the easiest country to come to and the easiest country to, legalize your status if you do it right. But once they started identifying the abuse, people marrying their cousins or marrying their family members just to get a green card, and then they say, heck no, we're going to have to change, the law and the rule. And then Congress now gave the right to the president to decide on this stuff. America is a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. And if you violate the law, then you have to be exposed to the punishment that the law said, you have violated.
Now, looking ahead, could this become another major legal battle between the Trump administration and the U.S. courts over how far presidential powers can go when it comes to immigration?
Well, the presidential power is always challenged. You look at the issue with tariff. Again, if China say we don't want anything to come in, does anybody challenge China? Russia, Nigeria, what's the legal structure in those countries? But in America, for instance, we challenge the president. We don't worship the president. When they do things, somebody can sue. It doesn't even have to be a group. Somebody can sue the president or sue for the action against the president. So that's what you have. And again, the federal court is the federal court. Well, it's one judge. The one you can give whatever reason based on their own interpretation of the law they are making reference in order to issue their order. But again, we have, the next level is the appeal, the circuit court. We go to the circuit court. Boom, 3-judge panel of judges, they're going to decide. And then if it doesn't work out, we go to the Supreme Court. But again, the president has the ultimate executive order. Issue that executive order,
all right,
you can modify everything. So it's unfortunate, but I'm just anybody who's going to every country, become a goodwill ambassador for yourself and the country that you bear their passport. Don't come to another person's country and violate them. So that opens the door of what affects everybody else. When I worked for the FDIC, I used to get security issues, credit card. That's 1980 something when Nigerians started doing credit card fraud. And I went to Nigeria and said, stop this stuff. It's going to catch up with us. And it has. So many Nigerians have been deported because of credit card fraud. Because we think, oh, man, it's easy, we got to do it.
Ejike Okpa, apologies to butting here, but due to the fact that we're pressed for time, we'll just have to wrap up this conversation right now. But thank you so much for your time.